Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live stream where we're going to talk about taming dreadful tasks. I'm joined today by Anya, who I'm going to be collaborating with on this project in general. Yeah, it's really lovely to have you here and to be working on this with you.
Yeah, but it's lovely to be here. This is only my second ever live stream, so I'm excited and apprehensive.
Well, fortunately, it's not only my second ever live stream, so hopefully it will go all right. Um, yeah, so to just describe the project a bit, first of all, what is it that you wanted to do out of this and that we're trying to do with this whole thing?
Well, it's the code name for the project is Imperfectly Done, and it was about overcoming these tasks that, well, I don't know about anyone else, but I've spoken to a number of people, and there's like these blocks, these little roadblocks that can either be technological or emotional, usually, bit of a spoiler, a bit of both. And finding a way to discover productivity on our own terms, because this is something I've had to do a lot due to living with a disabling chronic illness. Um, I know what it's like, to have this thing of society saying, unless you are extremely productive, you have zero value. And actually being able to wrestle with that and overcome things internally and externally is kind of why I dragged you into this, Matthew.
Well, I'm very glad you did, and I'm not entirely sure you actually did. I think we kind of came up with this thing. Yeah, as it kind of emerged out of our conversations and my experience, particularly around neurodiversity and being neurodivergent myself, and working with that, and working with the limitations that come with that, and the experience of it feeling like a real, like there being real strength and value there, but there being really frustrating barriers between me and my ability to realize that.
Yeah.
And I think that that whole approach is really what gave rise to this particular thing. And we have both worked pretty extensively in like overcoming this in our own experience. And I
Mm.
know, I've when I said I've done this a couple of times before. I've recorded over 80 episodes of Delightful Descent now, and it's like that's an hour's episode each time, and that there's a lot of content out there, and that regular practice. And Anya, I think you've done kind of something. You've got your own practices around this as well.
Well, I just realized just before recording this that I have been publishing a blog post since the 1st November 2018, every month bar one, and sending out a newsletter every month bar one. Um, and so that's 5 years worth of content that I've been creating, and I hadn't even realized it.
Yeah, so finding a practice that works for us is a challenge, but something we both engaged with and done, and I think both support others with in our work as well. And finding something that is fun and enjoyable to engage with. I think that's the big thing for me. Is I don't have a lot of capacity to do things that don't interest me and aren't fun. So I kind of have to make it work for my skills.
Yeah.
But I think it's important anyway. I think what I'd like to do, because it's can be a little bit abstract, is maybe give people a concrete example of the kind of things that we want to talk about as
Mm.
part of this project and the kind of things that we might be able to help with. And we came up with this kind of marketing related stuff as it's entirely relevant, and content marketing, how you get your stuff out there,
Mm.
and to look at both the kind of more emotional challenges or internal barriers and the external ones and the practical ones and how they combine.
Mm.
So would you like to start maybe on the on that more internal side of getting yourself out there?
Gosh, yeah. I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges I can still, wrestle with is this idea of putting myself out there. And, you know, up until, I just mentioned earlier, I've been living with disabling chronic illness since 2006. I'm still shielding. I don't go out much. And it can be this real fear for myself of, I'm not interesting enough. what do I have to share? What's my opinion? I used to be a script writer, actually. I used to love making scripts, and I had a huge period where I didn't write at all because I just thought I have nothing to share. I have nothing worth listening to. And it wasn't until I tapped into what was going on for me that I was able to start articulating things again. And through that, little messages would come through saying, oh, you've been able to explain something which was on the tip of my consciousness. Or people saying, you know, how much better they know me. And so I think, you know, it can be a struggle to know, not, you know, to know what to say, but particularly with my newsletter, I've changed over the years, but I just give myself a structure. And so the little blocks I just need to fill in. And I'm actually going to probably revise it again now. And that's the thing. It works for as long as it works. And then you've got the permission to change it. And that's something which has really helped me in generating content for these last 5 years.
I really like that. And I think that fear of showing up as us, it's one of the really valuable things I found in doing this, is it's actually been a quite gentle practice in leaning into that and dealing with that so I can show up more as me in other circumstances.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think you're able to probably as well talk to the idea of like making mistakes and putting in workflows that work for you. Because I know Delightful Descent, you're regular, but it's on a schedule that works for you.
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple of tries at a podcast type thing beforehand, and really the whole process around it didn't work for me. I just, particularly the kind of organization and all the moving parts and the editing afterwards didn't work very well for me. And so I came across the idea of live streaming instead, which was an emerging thing a few years ago. And because it works really well for me, and the kind of my practice at doing live events and doing other things meant I kind of knew how to structure that and bring other people into it, so I could do that bit, and I like doing that bit. And it meant that I could go out with something that was, you know, pretty polished live just as is, rather than doing it, you know, and having to edit it all the time. And that suited my workflow. So most of it was all done via conversation, and it suited the kind of people I wanted to have on the show and the kind of people I wanted to engage and see the show. And so I think that, you know, finding something that fits your strengths and what you're trying to do with it is a really, really big part of the practical thing. And being able to practice that and get good at it in a way that doesn't feel like if it goes a bit wrong, it's overwhelming. Yeah. So it's those two things, particularly when it's something that isn't the, you know, when there are so many people out there telling you like, this is the way you do that. This is what you need to have a, you know, have a, it's like, I did some experiments with this because everyone was telling me, right, you need to take clips, you need to sort it out. I tried it with a couple of episodes, and each of those episodes did get about half as many views again as the previous episode, but it took me more effort than it took me to make a whole episode.
Yeah.
So for me and my skills and my work, it just wasn't worth it. Yeah. I got more viewers and more interest and have more fun just by doing another episode and getting to talk to someone else interesting. And so I feel like, you know, just finding your own space in that. And if your skill is in making really highly polished, highly edited, high production values kind of finished stuff, then doing that is also really valuable, and perhaps doing it more than other people do it. Yeah. You know, coming up with something that is rare. It's just finding your own relationship to it and the work and the practices that support that. Yeah,
absolutely. Because you're making me think of, you know, the chronic health community, and I think it's spread a bit beyond that now. The idea of spoons, only having a finite amount of energy to do a certain thing or number of things, and actually just being aware of that and tailoring. Because I don't know anyone else, but it's so, you're right, there's so much advice out there saying you have to do things in a certain way, and it can feel really challenging if, one, you look at the technology and go, I can't cope with that. So there's that huge immediate boundary, which then triggers this sense of shame and guilt. Oh, I should be doing that. And all these shoulds, you know, becoming, you know, the inner critic loves to get an extra stick out to beat us with. And which can make us, I can love myself. I know I can get very dysregulated. This in itself can bring up kind of a desire to avoid things.
And also just make it harder if I'm if I'm anxious about showing up, if I'm socially anxious, it makes it harder for me to do something that's complicated and technical. Yeah. So I'm more likely to press the wrong button, or do the wrong, or like typos are just the thing for me. So I have to understand that and work with that and know, like, when will I be in kind of going on stage mode, so I'm not going to be doing anything technical then. For other people it's different. They really like the focus and the sharpness, the adrenaline, and so they get sharper, whereas I get sharper in different ways. And so I think it's like I'm good, like I pay attention verbally and but I don't, like, I'm not technically as good with that, or I can't do both at once anyway. I think that's actually the difficulty. So I think there's both being strategic about the reserves that we have, and also being about what we enjoy. I think that's the other side of it. We learn that it's not really okay to, that we have to kind of struggle and strive, and it's got to be difficult, because so much of it can be. And so you learn to associate that if it's not difficult, then it's not right.
It doesn't have worth or value. If yes. The idea of no pain for no gain, and therefore it doesn't hurt. Obviously, this we take it for granted. My background is in positive psychology, and when we talk about the strengths-based approach, which I know you also adopt with your neurodiversity work, things that come easy to us, we kind of don't acknowledge or appreciate, and don't give as much value to. And we fear that others will do the same as well. Whereas someone's really good at something, you just sit there and going, darn it, you're making the rest of us look bad in comparison. And this person's going, no, it's just easy for me. It doesn't have any value. It doesn't have any meaning.
And I think it can be really difficult to find out what that is. And it can be really difficult to support that if it's unconventional, if it's not what people expect.
Yeah.
Or perhaps if we've got or if the world assumes that it goes alongside another particular strength or particular appetite, and we don't happen to have that one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things which you've introduced me to, which I really have used a lot in different circumstances actually, is the idea of the spiky profile, and being really good and competent, hyper competent in some things which other people aren't good at, but having a comparative deficit in things which most people would consider brackets easy.
And again, I think it's really important, there is this technical wrapped up in this more inner emotional experience, and the fact that a lot of us will have had trauma around that, or have very difficult experiences that make it emotionally difficult to revisit as well. And I think being able to do that compassionately, finding spaces where you can try out and be playful with it and encounter this stuff without having just to kind of show up in fully in public, is it's the only way I've managed to develop this. Honestly, I think it's really important as an approach, and I'm very grateful to all of the support that I've had, and other people who've kind of explored that with me.
Because I think we're going to move on in a sec, but it's this idea of if something triggers our feelings of shame, it's a very natural, very normal self-protective mechanism not to go towards something, and holding on to the belief that, oh, I'm not technical, because if you start venturing towards these things, you're just feeling so vulnerable and open to more data that consolidates your belief that you are inadequate in some way, you are not enough in some way, you're not lovable in some way. Yeah, it reminds me, there's a great trauma quote, no one can do it for you and no one can do it on their own. And I think can be considered, trauma with a small t, or being forced to do things which make you feel so inadequate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a real, and I think it's this relationship between these methods and being able to try different methods, and those feelings and the difficulty, because very often I think just the trauma thing, it's very valid, but it can be methodologically inflexible, and it's like, well, actually, maybe this just isn't the right way for me.
Yes.
But we assume, my response to quite a lot of stuff is, well, the problem isn't just in me. Yes, it is related to previous trauma, but that's still there. Some of
Yes.
those barriers are still there. It's still a problem. So I think that's one of the other areas that I think it's really worth examining. And I think that, over time, for me, there's this, it can build up the fear, the dread around these things. They do accumulate like a little gaggle of goblins. I think that's the, sat in the corner, kind of eyeing you, waiting for you to, slip up. And I think that feels like, being able to actually positively engage with them is such a helpful thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So talking of positively engaging with such things, we've got an event coming up.
Absolutely. So we're going to be doing a workshop on this, relatively small group, very interactive kind of live work along workshop on Monday the 27th of November at 2:00 UK time. So it'll be both of us, and we'll be working through some principles and ideas and inviting you to bring along specific challenges that you might have either in this marketing space or in anything kind of around these things that both have a bit of a practical element and a more kind of felt difficulty as well, and really helping unpick those in a kind and safe and gentle way.
And I think that's the emphasis on the kind and gentle, being able to have a space where we can hold it all and have it held for us, so that we can realize that these challenges and these fears don't need to define us, and there might just be this one little thing which can just take us over that hump and allow us to really feel our sense of self-efficacy, our agency, because that's the thing. It's having this like sandbox to just say, to confess, I can't do this really simple thing that everyone seems to do. Brainstorm, have some ideas around how to find the way that's best for you, and just play with it. Just have some fun with this, finding ways to make things fun, easy, and meaningful, really.
Absolutely. And alongside this, we're also thinking about revisiting this live stream format, but taking people's questions instead. I think both of us have wanted to be a kind of, have a bit of like newspaper column agony aunt type vibes going on, and I think we kind of so just to kind of get that going, if you're watching this and you want to add in the comments anything that you're particularly struggling with, it would be really helpful to give us some ideas about that, and that we can take forward. So and we also both do individual work around these kind of topics, and are also available. We can work with us together if you've got a really pressing problem, and either with individuals or small private groups. So there's a whole range of different ways we can explore this, but very much urge you to check out the workshop, and the link to that is in the show notes as well.
Because this is, both Matthew and I explained our background for doing this project, but I think there's a larger umbrella behind this of knowing so many phenomenal people who are just stuck in a small place, and knowing I'm finding the leverage point. If I can help people who can help a lot of people, my impact is increased exponentially. And I think that's how to look at this workshop and this work that we're doing as well. Can we help you to fulfill what it is that's in your heart? Your heart's desire for who you want to be in the world, to make it sound very big and very fancy. But because I have a strong suspicion that, if you're watching this, you have something to share which other people will benefit from. And that's why we want to be involved, really. It's for that exponential positive impact that these ripples can create.
Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful place to end. So yeah, thank you very much. And I hope to see everyone watching to, do get in touch, and I hope to see you at the workshop and around and about. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah.